Hi everyone and welcome back to SwitchUp. If you enjoyed the video at all, then let me know down in the comments and tickle some buttons. A thanks to the developer and publisher for the review copy. The first Atelier Ryza was the 21st in the series and came out all the way back in October of 2019. We then saw a sequel in December of 2020, and now Koei Tecmo and Gust have brought us the third and final game in the series. So does Atelier Ryza, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key, finish with the perfect formula, or is it filled with too many low quality components? Well, let's find out. Way back when our adventure first began, Ryzelyn Stout, Ryza, was a young clueless girl seeking adventure on her home island of Kirken. Lots has happened since then, and you can catch up on her adventures using a handy feature, which, with a short movie, will show you exactly what's happened since episode 1. We join Ryza once again, but she's much older and wiser. She's now a pivotal part of the community, performing public service and essentially becoming a bit of a dog's body. That is, until some mysterious islands pop up, all your mates rock up on a boat, and your summer adventure begins once again. For me, Ryza has always been adventuring for adventure's sake. They're whimsical and enjoyable experiences that err on the light-hearted side. Now, I don't want to spoil the story here. It's most certainly for fans of the first two games, with many moments of reflection and nostalgia, almost to a fault at points, but if you're invested in the first two, it's going to work for you. Something that's become a little more of an issue for me are some of the translations from Japanese to English. Some JRPGs, and I spoke about this with a recent Matto Anomalies video, they work hard to try and translate ideas and themes rather than direct text, but Ryza tends to go for the latter. This can lead to some meaning being lost or some real confusion as to what it is they're talking about. But as most of us know by now, there's a bit of a flow to an Atelier game where you almost let it wash over you and you absorb the important things. I am pleased that there's a very easily accessible log that you can bring up by holding up on the D-pad at any time, and if, like me, you accidentally checked your phone a few times during an extra long cutscene, you can catch up on any pertinent information. The storyline overall is expected, and it's a nice fitting end to the series. On to the gameplay and controls then, and one thing I really look out for these days are quality of life improvements and a sense that your time is being respected, and I think Gust have done a great job here. Although Ryza ambles around a very slow pace, she can sprint in any direction. And my goodness, she'd give Usain Bolt a run for his money. Then, once you've visited any of the areas, you can fast travel anywhere. You don't have to be outdoors to fast travel, which in my opinion was always a ridiculous idea, and it makes overall navigation and getting to and from quest objectives much easier. If you want it to be. Now I say if you want it to be because an Atelier game is all about spending time out in the wilderness collecting up different ingredients, and that remains true here. Gathering points will flash and have an image above them showing which tools can be used to mine them, and once she has a bulging sack, you can head home to drop the ingredients off. Movement is the one area I'm much more pleased with Ryza 3. She now moves around a little more like Lara Croft's less impressive little sister, climbing up ledges, shimmying through cracks, sliding and crawling around. Oh, and riding dolphins. Everything's designed to make the world more accessible, including these handy little zip lines, which once unlocked allow you to move freely backwards and forwards between them. Now before we get onto combat, let's look at the world map. It's quite vast, and it's split into regions. Each region has its own checkpoints which can be fast traveled to, but you'll have to do this on foot first, or on monster back. The monster system sees a return with some slight tweaks, with various mounts being available. Different spirit beasts will have different skills, and they just look awesome. And then we have the combat. Now you can engage in combat at any time, simply by approaching an enemy. This uses an active turn-based system. Essentially what that means is if you're about to be attacked, you can time a button push to block much more of the damage. You can chain together a number of attacks, and this builds up your AP. AP is then used for your special moves, but with good timing you can string together long chains. This counts towards your combo multiplier, but to keep this going you can hold the L button and switch in a team member. Again, if you time it right, top tip, look over here and just wait for the button to light up, you can carry that chain on. So far so straightforward, but it is a very nice active combat system. And then we've got the big new mechanic which affects all parts of gameplay, and that's the key system. When a monster's health drops below 80%, you can attempt to form a key from their aura. I know, bear with me. Now this has a chance of success rate, but if successful it grants you a special key. You can then use these keys on your characters to buff them. They might increase your skill speed, the type of damage you do, and there's an emphasis on defeating them within this time limit. It's really unusual, but it actually works quite well. But the stroke of genius is that these keys can then be used in the adventure section. There will be certain chests that can only be opened with certain keys, as well as secret areas, accessible again with the right key. It's a very cool idea, completely bonkers, but it works. Finally then, before we talk about a few things that I'm not so thrilled about, we have, of course, the Atelier. Now not only do you have your base Atelier, this time around there will be times where you have to set up mobile ones. Interestingly, you can choose the style, so for example a research center or one that has a plot of farmland boosting certain attributes. And the Atelier system remains largely unchanged in terms of its execution, allowing you to manually create high or low level items, or you can press a button and automatically do this. But the twister again is the keys. You can add a key into your recipe, greatly improving the outcome. Personally, one of the biggest weaknesses for Ryza 3 is it can feel quite self-indulgent. It's never shied away from adventure for adventure's sake, but the storyline does feel a little forced. Now, I love the combat, I really enjoy the world exploration, but the quests, side quests, and random quests are quite generic. In its defense, it's an Atelier game, and it's the last in the trilogy, and as a result, it puts emphasis and time back onto that. The story, it's okay. The gameplay is just as good as ever with some improvements. Together they score 16 out of 20. The controls are the best so far in the series. They score 19 out of 20. Visually, Ryza 3 looks much the same as before. However, I did notice a few changes. Now firstly, performance isn't quite as good as it was in the previous two games. Whether it's the larger scale or something else under the hood, I noticed a few stutters. Then I saw that there was a quality or performance mode. Having changed these, I noticed very little difference. In fact, when I put it onto quality mode, the level of detailed draw distance is even closer to Ryza, which makes no sense. There also seems to be some level of detailed draw distance issues throughout the world, with pop-in very close to the camera and an overall slightly rougher look, even down to things like aliasing the jaggy edges on the edges of the characters. Although Ryza 2 wasn't a bustling world, the city saw many more people moving around. However here, they're generally static. The world is as oversaturated as ever, and it certainly will put a smile on your face as you run through it, with day turn into night, different weather patterns, and a reasonable sense of freedom. I do think it lacks a tiny bit of polish. But one huge improvement over any of the other games are the load times. Load times are ridiculously fast. When you're entering a building, it's almost instant. When you're fast traveling from one side of the world to the other, it's probably, bar frame rate, the most important aspect to the visuals and performance to facilitating fun gameplay. And thankfully, it's just great. The soundtrack is as good as ever. And it fits perfectly the action on screen, but I for one would love to see an English dub. I know it's not for everyone, but things like the banter between characters can be really easy to miss when the writing's so small and you don't understand the language. Overall, the visuals and performance score 15 out of 20. Audio scores 18 out of 20. Ryza 3 is going to set you back $49.99 or your regional equivalent, and it's a 6.7GB download. While it comes with a few costume DLCs, there are other DLCs on the horizon, like the ridiculously expensive Endless Summer Splash costume set, which is £17.99, featuring 11 swimsuits. Now, obviously that's optional, and the base game offers decent value. It's not the longest JRPG ever. You could finish this in around 30 to 40 hours, but I think a completionist run is going to take you significantly longer than that. With all things on balance, I give value 16 out of 20. Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key, is a fitting conclusion to the story of Ryza. It makes a couple of missteps and is a little self-indulgent, but that's probably what the fans are after. Can we afford to add one more huge game to our backlogs? Probably not. Will we do it? More than likely. It gets a SwitchUp score of 84%. A thanks to Koei Tecmo again for the review copy. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts, and as always, just a big thanks to all of you who enjoy the content. A big thanks to our Patreons and our members, and for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!